All right, you guys, welcome to another episode of Car Talk. I'm your host, Big Mike, right here with
Ryan Bossery from Rywire.
and today we are going to talk about the future of the automotive import community, culture, and industry.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and it's a question that in some form
Feels kind of weird being on this
it's
side.
right. I know you guys caught it. Something was different.
I feel like I'm further away from you for some reason.
It does. But you know what? When it comes to our hearts, they're not further away from each other, Ryan.
I guess they're not.
So, to some degree, we are very integrated into that question, both from this side and that side, as enthusiasts and as figureheads within the industry and business and social grassroots and events and people and it's a very serious question and one that we don't always have time to really dwell on, but yet we wonder about it because we're integrated into it. So I mean, let's start with Ryan, I feel like this is going to end up being a two-parter because it's very layered, right?
There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
So we're talking about community, culture, and industry. So since with Rywire, and I feel like let's go on the industry side, right?
Side.
So let's start there. So for you and from you, what do you think is the future? Let's go 10 years, right? Next 10 years, what do you think the import aftermarket automotive industry, we'll talk about community and culture later, industry's future is 10 years from now?
Well, I mean, thank you for giving me so much time to think about this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm not really sure, but I guess if I would guess, educated guess.
Sure. We never know. Anything could change, but
Sure. From seeing engine prices skyrocketing,
Okay.
right? Seeing car values skyrocketing.
Yes.
I feel like there's gonna be a divide between the collector stuff
Okay.
and then the tuner stuff.
Okay.
So I think that we're definitely gonna see a lot more of that collector side of our import culture.
Okay.
And it's kind of obvious when you see a couple in the last 2 years. You get Integra Type R's that are selling for $50,000+, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where before that was a car that you would buy and then you would save your money to fix up.
Yes.
Rather now you're saving your money to buy it, and
You'd buy it for like 28.
Yeah,
24.
and you're sitting on these $50,000 investments as if they're Bitcoin or a stock market investment. So it's pretty crazy to think that there's going to be that whole direction of the culture. But okay, with my industry, with our industry,
Yes.
I think that customization of restoration parts.
Yes.
So like with my industry, I've actually been kind of thinking about doing a loom that's more like a restoration loom.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like an
Yes.
OE replacement.
An OE style. Yes.
So I've been thinking about OE replacement kind of thoughts in my head. It's not all just, take everything out, gut it, strip it, shave it, tuck it.
I absolutely
kind of a thing.
think you should do it. I absolutely think you should do it.
So there's that direction. Like I was saying before, with the value of these engines just skyrocketing, prices to build a car are going to be a lot more expensive. I feel like if you're going to do, like, look at the race cars that we're seeing now with all billet everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dude, that's like $50,000+ B series.
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know? Drivetrain setups. So it's super crazy to see that you need a big pocketbook to build a proper race car these days. I'm not sure what these cars are costing, but you're probably around the $100,000 mark.
Sure.
If your engine is in the 50s, and then you have all these, billet everything and
Yeah.
and they're proper looking with paint jobs and everything like
Sure.
that.
Sure.
I mean, the cars are just worth more, so the quality and parts going into it are more expensive,
Right.
and as a whole will just be more valuable,
I mean,
for everyone.
specifically, so a little bit sub-specific to you and your role as far as Rywire Motorsport Electronics. I mean, just from what last year, you broke all records in sales, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
to put it out there in the sense of how many people are actively
yeah.
right now
Right.
modifying, building, changing their setup. I mean, there's always the guys that have a good setup,
Yeah.
and then they just want to keep, moving it.
Right.
Maybe when they put it together and visually it's like a totally beautiful car, but they got the budget. Now they're like, I want to get the, Raycam, the labels, etc. So it's just one nice step up,
Yeah,
but they didn't
everything.
change maybe that much else.
Yeah, everything's a step up in the last few years. I
Yeah.
mean, just look at how many ECU companies are now in the market.
Mm-hmm,
When
mm-hmm.
before, like maybe when you're talking 10 years ago, there was only like a couple different
Sure,
brands
sure.
that were really like, very relevant. And there's so many more because now, it's just a part of everybody's build. Engine management, uh, a wiring loom that would
Yes.
go hand
If
in
you go
hand with
back far
that.
enough, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a chipped ECU.
Yeah.
You changed nothing.
Right.
Except what you plugged in or what was in the board.
Right, or your whole build would be based on a swap.
Right.
Like you would take everything from a Integra and you put it in a Civic.
Yeah, you get a B18C, C5,
And
ECU.
and then all it is on that point is, well, what color, like your palette. It's like when you're doing a house and you get to choose your
Sure.
your
Well, if
kitchen
you
and
go before that, it
your
wasn't.
cabinet.
It was.
Yeah, your
If you saw the
tile.
red valve cover, that was all people wanted
Right.
to see.
You have the red valve cover, you have the B18C swap.
Yes.
And then you have, what wing do you want? What wheel
Right.
choice do you want? What color's your paint?
Right.
Do you
And then
even
somebody
care
would
about
look in and see, that it was a Fujitsubo or a J's or a Mugen header, and you were like, "Fuck!"
Yeah, and
that's
then-
all it was.
and that guy's all of a sudden baller.
right,
He's
right.
super rich.
And
He's-
it's funny because that's 20, 25 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but now it would be the same thing. So we're into all these crazy cool engine bays, but at the same time, if somebody popped the hood of like a CRX and you saw a Type R valve cover and you looked in and it was pure and simple and clean and there was like a Mugen header, right now people would be like, damn, right? It's kind of interesting.
True.
It's kind of interesting. That's why the people who've been doing the resto simplicity stuff, it's just one of those things that cannot and would not and has not gone out of style.
Yeah, it's not going to go out of style.
So your whole thing about an OEM visually style, but not just visually, but the layout for someone that just wants.
Yeah.
I think, dude. I mean, I honestly think that you and I had that we brushed on that topic in a conversation like 5 years ago, but it was like there wasn't any push to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the push to do it comes with requests.
Sure, sure.
People that are it's like reaching out and they're like, "Hey, do you have anything like this? Would you be willing to make anything
And
like
it's
this?"
starting to come in at a
And then-
decent rate, right?
Yeah. Now I'm like, okay. There's there's nothing available,
Mhm.
and we have to like retape things, and it just doesn't look as good. Can you make something brand new? So then I kind of started like, okay, well that's a direction I should
Yeah.
go.
Okay, so on that along those lines, so specifically for you and what you would do, that we touched on that, and then in the broad scheme of things, you touched on the race cars and how much more things. So you're saying you'll have more of like the restoration type stuff style,
Mhm.
and then of course the guys who are just live and breathe and die hard racers. So
Yeah.
anything to drag or time attack. Which is like two whole different worlds, but yet that's all they want to do is go faster.
Right.
And of course, the style of it. So
Mhm.
now people are putting that much more effort into looking good while also doing it, which
Yeah.
time attack cars and drag cars didn't give the slightest shit back in the day,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there were the
Uh,
people like the
may-
Bergenholtz and a
maybe
couple
like-
people, Steph. They made dope looking cars even back then,
Yeah.
but not everyone,
Right. Whitfield and
Mhm.
guys like that.
Hell yeah. So, okay, so I see what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think what's going to also end up happening, which is, I suppose, absolutely inadvertent, would be the socioeconomic divergence that's happening in this country. I mean, it affects everything. Is you're going to start to see a forced, broader difference in who's doing what because who can afford what.
Yeah.
Like entry level, you could buy a oxidized faded EF for like $800 before.
Right.
If someone just had one OEM motor, they drove it to the ground, right?
Yeah.
And it was oxidized and it had dents. It's $800. That right now is like $4,800.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
So what about if the paint is still clean and the moldings are good? That's like $8,800. If it has a set of wheels and like an EF9 front end, you're like 10,000 plus, and it just goes up and up. And the more OEM and clean it is, the more it goes for.
Yeah.
So when we all would buy, I had an EJ Coupe, I had an EF, I had a CRX, I had all these cars, and it's like, if you wanted to just grab them right now, you have to actually like do some financial mapping. Back in the day, you didn't have to. You just had money in your pocket. You could just grab one.
Yeah. Like
And
you basically just wait for the good deal.
Yeah.
You just hear about, oh, okay, this one's $500. All right, looks good enough. I'll take it.
And if someone just wanted one, the bad deal was $1,800.
Yeah.
And you just were like, fuck it, it's clean, and you just buy it, right?
Yeah.
Now, now people are buying the most fucked up ones they can because that's all they can afford. So my point in saying that is, I think industry wise, but aftermarket, street fun culture industry side, is I feel concerned for the up and coming generation, because you guys, for the youngsters that are watching this, you need to have your money right to start, because the amount of money it'll take for you to buy a car, what I'm afraid is going to happen, Ryan, as far as the street driven culture, part of the industry is it's going to force people to feel like I think, and maybe this is pessimistic, I'm afraid, I don't think it will happen, I'm just afraid that it would happen or will happen, is that it's going to create shittier builds. And I'm afraid of it because, and shitty is a strong word, but I mean that lovingly, simply because you have always had the people who are willing to cut corners, buy reps, and not really put that much effort into a car, and then be mad when people don't think that it's on par. Yeah. There's always people like that. I'm talking about right now, it is going to be forced to kind of go in that direction.
Yeah, because the budget just doesn't allow. So then
the pricing of stuff,
you do your books and you go, okay, well, these are all the parts that I want.
And the justification for I can only buy rep wheels, or I can only buy like one thing at a time,
which scares me too, because I got all kinds of knockoffs coming in now.
Right,
my stuff.
So the other thing is that it gives a chance for these shitty, like unethical whatever companies. For example, right now there's a company that has straight knocked off Ryan's harnesses, and I'm not talking about the layout, the color of the wire even. Like if you peel back their covering, it's the same color wire as Ryan's. They knocked it off and they're putting a Rywire label on it and then telling people that they bought it from Rywire and they're a distributor, and the people who buy the knockoff are calling Rywire for tech and customer service. Is that not the most fucking crazy thing ever? So whether it be Ryan's stuff, he brings up a great point, because that's going to happen with everything.
Yeah, everything in general.
And people will, I feel that somewhere there's going to be a larger grouping of people who will rationalize it. Not buying something that they think is real, right? I'm talking about just
rationalizing the price.
The straight knockoff. They can't or won't rationalize the price of something else, so it's going to force a larger, by volume, by numbers, a grouping of people, especially maybe the younger ones. That's what I think is a practically possible effect in our industry. When you look at SEMA's numbers right now, so if you jump all the way to Grand, like Hot Rod, American, Off-Road, you name it, their numbers are up. Ryan's numbers are up. I don't know if it's people who took the stimulus money and went and put all their 3 stimulus checks and spun it on black. Like, I don't really know where the fuck everyone's getting their money from right now, but online sales of anything.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's through the roof.
It doesn't even matter what it is. It's all through the roof. Where are you guys getting the money, right? If you are open to sharing, put it in the comments, right? Did you buy a bunch of stuff and flip it? Did you guys do crypto? Like,
Is everyone doing
is
crypto
everyone
but
just did
us?
everyone just blow up on fucking crypto? Did everyone just go to the moon? Like, I don't know where you have people. We have the highest rate of unemployment in a while. There's jobs everywhere. They can't get the labor force is all effed up in the country, but online sales for anything are through the roof. How does that even make sense?
I have no idea.
So for those of you in here, did you guys have a steady job the whole time? Like 2020, were you an essential worker? Did you just find a gig working remote? What are you guys doing as a source of income? And did it get better or worse? Did you buy more during 2020, 2021, or did you buy less? And do you have friends that you're just like, you guys have a lot of new parts or shoes or clothes or whatever. So that's what you're seeing. But let's jump maybe 5 to 10 years, right? What do you think is going to happen to the industry? I mean,
I mean,
if the RPM Act doesn't get passed,
yeah,
then it's going to fucking get destroyed. But
right.
we have episodes on that. We don't need to bring that up here. Presuming the RPM Act gets passed and SEMA is able to solidify that difference and everything can continue in the aftermarket sense as it is.
I mean, there's a possibility that there'll be more EV stuff as well. I mean, there's a lot of companies pushing that really hard.
It is. It's going to happen. It is happening.
And me not really being one of them, I'm not really pushing it hard. I just really like my reasoning for doing that S2000 was to learn.
Sure.
And just to know, like, okay, well, how does this even work? And I wanted to implement my ideas and how I would do it on paper and then in reality. But I think that there'll be more of that.
Yes.
It's funny to see how many people are like anti-electric conversions.
Sure.
But then on the flip side of things, there's a lot of people that are very intrigued by it. And I think that it's just like anything. You keep feeding somebody something and then they're going to be like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Well, that one's kind of okay because you did this. And then there's going to be one more like, oh, well, it's kind of okay because they did that. And then they're like, well, I mean, I don't hate it. Like, I never said I hated it.
Right.
But then they were the ones that were like,
like, okay, like the polarization that occurred when you debuted your EV S2 with Turn, and we were there, and in person was one thing, online was another.
Yeah, I mean, like, everybody in person was super supportive, thought it was really cool.
Yep.
Oh, I actually like it. I didn't know how I would feel about it, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's going to be super fast. Oh, it's going to be this. It's going to be that.
But here's the thing, right?
And then online, it was like, blah.
Oh, yeah, we hate Ryan, death threats and all that,
like,
which we have an episode about
ridiculous.
that where we literally talk about people saying they want to kill Ryan.
Well, they don't, not to me directly, but
online.
That car, whoever built that should be, off.
Should be whacked.
Yeah, whatever they said.
Okay, but here's the thing. Let's take something like Unplugged Performance, right? The manner upon which they're doing it, and then you jump all the way to Evasive, building like outright race cars, and you put Dye behind the wheel. They're fast, Pikes Peak, etc. So you have people who are fans of Dye and or fans of Evasive and or fans of just race cars.
Everything's gonna get filtered in,
and when they see it, they're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna lie, that shit looks kind of dope.
Right. They're gonna be like, that's the Dye Evasive car is a perfect example of this, because you got 700,000 people that like Dye and follow him on social media and his YouTube channel, and he's got 1 million plus people on social media, and then you see him live when you're at Formula D and you're like, I like this guy, right? And so he's gonna grab all these people, and then he's gonna kind of convince them single-handedly that it's not so bad. Like, you can not like it, but you shouldn't hate it.
You shouldn't hate it. At least respect what we're doing going up Pikes.
Right. And
something
then you got the super supportive Evasive guys, where no matter what, like, oh, they're putting a K20C in an S2000, I love it.
Yeah.
Right?
The people who are diehard, sure.
And then they're like, oh, they're doing a Tesla race car?
Yeah.
Well, Evasive's doing it, they're going to do a cool job.
Yeah. And then it came out and they're like, that looks great.
Oh, it looks great. I mean, I would rock that car is probably what a lot of these haters would eventually start saying about that car, right? So you're going to start seeing more and more electric stuff take its place, and you're going to see more and more people like converting to not appreciating it, but accepting it, and then from accepting it to appreciating
That's
it,
what
and then from
happens.
appreciating it to I wouldn't mind doing one. Oh, I already had this other one. Let's try it. Let's try an electric one.
So I know some of you who are watching are just like, dude, listen, I know the future's here. This is how it goes, but fuck that. And for the sake of that, I feel like it compared to like when people went from the 92 to 95 fifth gen Civic
Yeah.
to an EK.
Yeah.
People were like, these bug eye headlights, what did they do?
It's so much bigger.
It's so
It's so
ugly.
ugly.
And then, now that's a CTR, a Champ White, Phoenix Yellow, EK CTR
And then
is
they're
one of the
like-
most coveted cars ever.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I don't hate that one.
Right. But what I'm saying is there's a big difference between a redesign and going from combustion, starting a car, exhaust note, to no sound,
So
nothing.
it's gonna take longer.
It's gonna take longer. It's a bigger shock, pun intended. Electric shock. Okay. And
one.
and because of that, I think maybe because it's such a dramatic jump or change,
yeah,
but nonetheless, it is inevitable.
Right.
It is inevitable that people are just going to rock with it, especially as people learn to modify them or build their own. Now, with
Or-
emissions and like custom parts on company like Tesla, where they can turn down your horsepower remotely or shut your car off, that's a little different.
Yeah.
Because the
'Cause you're on a
way
cloud
you are
with your-
absolutely connected, and they can literally just. You know how we thought OnStar was crazy, where you can hit your rear view mirror and they're like, someone's
Somebody
like, OnStar,
come
are
to
you
get you."
are you in danger? Now it's just like this person's speeding, and your car just shuts off.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, apparently that happens to certain individuals, but I mean, let's just say that we know it's possible.
It's absolutely possible. You guys, these are okay. If you're buying an OEM electric car, you are 100% at all times connected to the internet.
Yeah.
That's how the car works. It's not standalone. It is not ever
It gets updates, and the whole CAN bus system is
correct.
connected
It
to
is
it.
absolutely never disconnected from the internet. I think people some sort of just think of it as an electric car. It is an internet car.
Yeah.
Okay, it really is, right? Because Tesla doesn't need to plug to your car physically to update your system. It's just like your iPhone. If you don't do the settings, it just updates you to iOS, whatever. It's like that, and I don't think Tesla gives you the option to decline
it's
an
not
update.
it's not like, oh, you shouldn't take your car to the dealership because they're gonna plug in and they're gonna like change things or get in
Yeah.
your system. No, it's like you have no choice.
You have no choice because that's part of what your purchase agreement is. So, anyways, I think Ryan's dead on with that. The EV side of things, the pricing side of things. I'm afraid of the disparity side of things.
Yeah.
That's kind of like one of the things that crosses my mind. I'm excited about the future, and it concerns me for people, not for myself specifically. Just in a broad sense, I'm wondering, how are younger people going to afford to get into this culture and this industry? Because the
Crypto.
baseline is brutal. And if everyone had a cost of living increase, if the economy was booming and jobs were thriving, it would kind of just be this like linear-ish thing. But it's not.
There's a lot of separation.
The separation's growing. The middle class. This is going to sound like political terminology, but it's not intended to be. The middle class of people who make like 30 to like 70 grand a year is like, it's doing this.
Yeah, there's there's all these like talks of saying like, oh, there's not going to be a middle class.
Yeah. Dude, Social Security, they just announced that
Yeah.
by 2032 it's going to go dry.
Yeah, it's going to be gone.
So whoever's old now, you guys are cool. All of us, there's no government assistance when we get older. So, anyways, this is just barely scraping the surface of what's happening in our industry. I mean, the cars are surviving, and they're going for a lot, but they're not going anywhere. It's thriving in the sense of they're more coveted, they're more highly valued, and I just like real estate, I hope that this bubble pops, at least in the sense of tapering off, like hit some kind of ceiling, and if it had to stay up there, which I wish it wouldn't, for people's sake. But if it stays there, cool, instead of just climbing forever. Because if it continues to climb, the disparity will continue to grow and be like rigid and strong. It won't really be gray. And so, if you're watching this now, um, if you guys were going to get into it, if you're a younger person, if you're going to get into it, you're going to need to buy something now because it's going to go up for a while before it tapers off. If you guys are trying to find anything, I mean, I don't know what your occupational situation is like. If you wanted to just not have a car payment and buy something outright, be prepared for what that means. And if you can save up a little bit longer, take out a loan. If you have stable income and you're willing to, I don't know what you saved. You saved 8, you saved 12, I don't know, you saved 20, and it takes 35 to buy like your dream car, which I think is representative of a lot of people. Take your 20, and I would actually suggest, if this is you doing your own numbers of if you could afford this, instead of buying a 20 that's like, it's a good enough, I honestly say take the 20 and get a loan for 15 if you can afford to. You know how to do your own numbers, and buy the 35 that is just that much less work, where you don't have to go hunting for parts because the time. These are used cars, right? These are used cars. You're not buying that new anything right there. But I'm talking about, that's what I would honestly suggest. What is a $15,000 loan in this one context? If you do it over like 5 years, it's $220 a month, right? $150 a month, what, depending on if you do it for 7 years. However you do that, but if you're old enough to understand how loans work and APR, I don't know what your credit's like. I would say if you were trying to buy a car and there's like a beat up one that's like at 20, but there's ones that are 30, 35, and they're like solid, clean starting points. This is where you're entering. Buy the $35,000 one.
Yeah.
And be happy, because that $35,000, or if it's an $8,000 beat up one and you could buy one for 18, that's like perfect. This is where you are. I say just do it. Because if you wait, it could easily be 10, 20, 50, 100% more. Because we went up 1,000%.
Yeah.
Right? If a car was $5,000 before, it's like 12 now. That's a humongous jump.
Yeah, when I was like 15, 16 years old, like, okay, I'm gonna get a car. What am I gonna get? I told myself there was like 3 cars I was looking at, but I was gonna get the highest model.
Yeah.
Like the highest trim.
Yeah.
Of the 3.
Yes.
So like I was looking at a Volkswagen. I was gonna get a VR6 model.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like. I was looking at a CRX, which I obviously ended up getting. I wanted the SI.
Yes.
And then what is it called? Toyota MR2.
Yeah.
I wanted the turbo.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I knew how much money I had, and I was at that point, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get an SI, but it's gonna not be in as good a condition. Do you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
As long as I can get that SI, then I don't have to do as much to get it to that premium.
Right.
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 Unless I found one for dirt cheap rock bottom.
Yes. Yes. So you guys, that is just an idea of a few different branches of the future in the next 5 to 10 years of our import aftermarket automotive industry. If you look at certain things, it's thriving, it's growing. I'm talking about it from like the layman, entry level, younger guys. It's getting rough, guys. It's getting rough, and if this is a dream of yours, if it's serious to you, which I know it is for a lot of people, you're gonna have to man up. That might mean a second job. I know people that have 3, and they're not young. It's all kind of relative. Everyone's economic, monetary scenario is different. But if it's a dream of yours to own X, Y, or Z, you gotta just own that shit now. Well, figuratively and literally, just go for it, because it's gonna get further out of your reach. We've touched on it a couple of times. We'll go to break after this, and we'll touch on another aspect of this topic. But like I mentioned in maybe a couple times in previous episodes, Ryan had an NSX. And there was a time where probably around 40, it might have even been like 38, I could have bought it from Ryan when he started deciding. But you ended up selling it for 40 something, right? I thought it was 40.
Yes.
Okay, well, regardless, it was around there.
Mm-hmm.
And now that car would maybe go for like, truthfully, 70. Mm-hmm. If you got like paint correction and shampooed the interior, and just sat it there. On Bring a Trailer, 70. It would go for 70 right now. Did Ryan know that? Not really. I mean, you can't. It's kind of like, for those of you beating yourself up, why did I sell this? Don't do that. You couldn't have necessarily known that it was just going to go shooting through the roof. But so let's just say 40, right? Which is about half of what that NSX is going to go for in like 2022, right?
Yeah.
Missed out. Another one, Aaron Bonk's black NSX,
Oh,
right?
he was selling it. He
Well,
sold
way
it?
back, yeah. He
Oh.
sold it a long time
Oh,
ago.
oh,
It
okay.
was repainted black by a professional body shop, and that disassembly paint it was all done in Honda tuning because he was the editor.
Right.
I was super cool with Aaron. Go to his house. He did side jobs, wrenching for me and other things, and I always appreciated NSX. He just had it on RPF ones. He didn't care to buy anything dramatic, but they're authentic wheels. They were different offsets for front and rear. Just, black's like an impossible paint job to really take care of. So, but he had it garaged. At one point, when he decided to sell it, like the window regulator was bad and like the normal things. But it was in fantastic condition, albeit for the purist, not original paint, but a professional paint job. And I think he ended up selling it for the $40,000 range too. This was years ago, guys, like 6, 8 years ago. And it was remember Josh? Remember Josh from E Effect?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's across the U.S. He bought it.
Oh, he bought
When
it.
he caught wind, he struck. Like, he caught wind. There, we were all in the same circle before anyone even knew.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Damn.
There was no Zelle back then. I don't know how he sent it. Boom, locked it in. One-way ticket. Got in. Drove it home
Nice.
across the U.S. So there you go. Right. That car. I don't know, retirement fund. God forbid any crazy emergency. You flip that for $50,000 net. Right. So, anyways, that kind of makes me want to touch on something real quick. This is forcing / inspiring people, in my opinion, to be flippers.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing, that's the reason why I'm telling you guys to just grab stuff, is because you now have people who are like, oh, fuck, there's this much, this is what they're selling for. So now you have people who aren't even trying to build them. You got people you guys want the car. You want to keep it. You got people who happen to have money and they're buying them up and flipping them. I can't knock the hustle, but for the person who's trying to buy them, you guys have to be on Facebook Marketplace and Auto Trader
Like,
and
all the time.
Craigslist.
Or you
You
have,
just
like-
have to live on it.
You have your thing like set up to notify you if
You
anything.
have to, because people are
Keywords and stuff.
gobbling these cars up, okay?
Yeah.
So you guys, if you're going to get in, if you can afford it, you have to do your own math. Get in right now, because it's just going to get less and less attainable as it appears presently. So, when we come back, we talked about industry and where we kind of see things going, and then we're going to talk about community and culture next, okay? We'll see you guys in a moment.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ryan from Rywire here, and today I have something really, really cool to show you. What I want to show you guys is that nothing that I'm doing here is so far-fetched that you guys can't do it at home. We don't have any CNC, there's no 5-axis machine here. I'm literally just using my brain and hand tools to get a really, really cool project done. Even in the most basic conditions, a beautiful outcome can arise.
Think Bigger podcast. This is a branch of the Think Bigger project that is a brand and a movement and an ideology that was created to better the community and the culture around it. How you behave in your relationships, how you build a car, how you do anything comes from the way that you think. And if you can start there, then everything else will follow. All right, you guys, welcome back. We had to do a little switcheroo because we have some spinal issues and some symmetry issues. It happens when you get older.
Yeah.
All right, so we spent some time really going into the future of the industry. So specifically with Ryan in his field, and then also just generally,
Yeah.
right? And it organically turned into, as it should, not just industry, but the people who comprise that industry, the community, right? And you guys know I'm like all about that. But in this sense, we sort of just segued into the community and the people. And so industry and getting into a build and into a car and sales and all that stuff. But the people who are doing all of these things are you guys, the people, the community. And so one very like it's like a pillar of everything. You have the modifications, of course, but what are people doing with that? The racers, and then you have the people who daily, weekend, fun, whatever you want to call it. And then there are many people who bring them to meets and shows, right? Buff Ryan, myself, the Honda meet, right? Formerly the IBOC meet. Formerly the IBOC meet. So you have meets like that which are established and prestigious and they have a legacy and a tone. It's mature. And then you have the ones that are like way more over the top with, you know, just music and limbo contests and two-stepping. So it's just different styles of the outdoor like extravaganza type craziness. And then you have the shows which are same kind of thing. You have the more relaxed ones. People park, enjoy each other's cars, and then you have the ones that are like extra crazy in a good and a bad way. For me, I find ones like TE. You know, I host the Tuner Evolution series. Shout out to the TE. You know, East Coast base, but hit all kinds of spots. Like I'm about to go to Houston, and you have that type of event which is layered. It is a production. There is an all-out, full-blown like intense stage setup with real audio. You're talking about a team.
It's a production.
It is a production, and cars are the focus. Cars are the main point, but they're a combination of cultures, b-boy competitions, musical guests, a backpack giveaway for little kids going back to school. So it's like this all-out thing, everything from charity to cars and culture and competition in the form of the judging, etc. Right? So you have so many different types, and you know, talking about the future of it, I see that as being a growing. It hit it obviously 2020 like fucked shit up, right?
Yeah.
2021 is actually still kind of struggling, but it's totally coming back. I actually feel like that's going to grow because
Because you've been away for so long, or because
yes,
because
the
you
being
think
away
that
for
more
so long.
people are getting interested in cars.
Well, the people who are interested in cars have always been there, and yes, there's a growing thing because if somebody didn't know any better, and wasn't necessarily into cars or a type of car, as online content creators become bigger and bigger because
Yeah.
people either don't want to or I don't know, just people are consuming and ingesting and digesting more online content. Maybe because people are kind of afraid, you know, to go into public places or large gatherings. For whatever the reason may be, it isn't just online sales that are growing, it's online content viewing, right? So, as people who may not have been into that, the algorithm, whether it be Instagram Explore page or YouTube suggestions, I think there's going to be I don't know about how much more than before, but still a steady growth of new enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Right? And whether it be in the context of starting their own channels, which, you know, everyone wants to go viral on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, there's always going to be that. And that's growing. You know, there's a younger generation that are like more and more and more deeply integrated into social media.
They're doing things strategically to go viral and
Correct.
stuff like that.
And not just that. That's there for sure. But I'm talking about we are of an age where we remember life before the internet even existed. And then if you get a little bit younger, they've always had the internet, but they don't even remember AOL.
Yeah.
Right? How to get online, 56K dial-up. Nobody even remembers that, a certain generation. When you go a little bit younger, we keep using these reference points. They look at us like, what do you mean there was no internet? Right? You go young enough, they're like, what do you mean? I don't, like, Facebook, they've had that on their phone or Instagram or now TikTok. If you're 8 years old, which there are many people who are way too young to be online, they don't, they don't know
anything
what it's
different.
like without that, right?
Right.
And that's why I try not to really knock or pick. I don't want to sound like one of those older generation boomers or back in my day types, because I understand the reality of it. If you're going to school and your desktop is a tablet, why am I going to not understand how that same kid can't go home and read a book? Because the teacher's teaching them and they're watching it move and they answer with their finger and it's all this touchscreen stuff, which is totally what's starting to happen. And you're going to tell a kid to go home and sit down and read this paper book?
It's like backwards.
It's backwards, right? So if you are holding your child in your hands and you are also doing selfies, don't be surprised when your kid, when they're one, knows how to open your phone and go on the app, because you've been showing that to them since they were little. That's a whole different conversation of narcissism and fuckery. But anyways, when it comes to the car meets and gatherings, I just came back from St. Paul, Minnesota, a place I've never been.
Right.
So Midwest, IBOC / the Honda Meet, Ohio, right? So that's Midwest. Then TE, Chicago, Midwest. And then there's the people from the whole Wisconsin, St. Paul, Minnesota, Twin Cities area where they're like, yo, honestly, we don't even go down to Chicago. That's like New York light is what they call it.
Huh. Okay.
So they're like, we're Midwest, and Chicago is maybe geographically, but we don't really low-key fuck with Chicago. Interesting.
Yeah.
So shout out to Drive Cartel, the Modest Show, St. Paul River Center, right? Just came back from that. And there's a thriving, bustling, albeit smaller by numbers, but the variety,
Yeah.
the style, it was super dope, man.
Yeah.
It was super dope. And cars that just not that long ago, a few months ago, I was in Chicago. Hundreds of cars in Chicago, not really more than 2 did I even see before.
But I mean, with the internet and all these people all over the world being influenced by the same like parts and cars, etc. They're like, when we go like overseas,
Yes.
and then they're like, our cars aren't as good as yours, or da 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 da, and it's like, no, they like are, because you guys are influenced by the same pictures, and we see all the same posts,
Yes, yes.
and we see all the same viral cars, and we see all the same influencers builds,
Yes, yes,
right?
yeah.
And so, everybody all around the world has similar, at least one guy with a good enough intelligence to put together a proper car.
Yes.
And that guy might be real busy, but I mean, like, these people exist. And so now that we've traveled so much all over the world, we're seeing the build qualities are actually on a very similar
Right.
level.
But like with anything, right? You also have the people who either because they don't want to, or because, like me, but choose to spend a limited amount of time on social media. You could just as easily not see the same things.
Right.
Like, you guys know how it works. If you are on Instagram and you hit your explore page button, it is going to be entirely different than mine or his. Now, there'll be this thumbnail, and this thumbnail that may not be the same, or it's the same, or at least it's a car, and if you click that within a few swipes or clicks, you'll be in the
Seeing the
same
same
realm,
thing.
right? So
Yeah.
conceptually. But Ryan's point is absolutely true, and that's why I think it's going to be a thriving, under the presumption that there aren't any backwards laws preventing people from gathering.
Yeah.
Right? With all that, presumably as we move forward, that doesn't happen. I think the gathering concept, whether indoors, organized, lights, lasers, sounds, performances, or grassroots, unofficial,
Is growing.
I think it's growing.
It's good.
Because people want to, let's call it what it is. Some people want the attention, and that's has such a negative sound. Let's go with the appreciation, the acknowledgement of what they've done, and nothing will ever be in person. So just kind of like, it's ironic because the internet pretty much helped to ruin magazines, something tangible, opening it, seeing your car, feeling the pages, and the internet helped to just kind of brush that into the past. But at the same time, having somebody say in person, wow, I love your car, will never, ever be replaced by someone FaceTiming and being like, "Hey, check my car out," and they're like, "Wow, that's amazing." That's never going to do it, right?
Right.
If someone comments on a blog, I don't care how big the blog or how big the YouTube channel is. When someone comments and like, "That is the dopest car ever," that's a nice thing to read. I don't know if you can throw in like 93 exclamation marks to really like drive that home. But if a person walks up to your car in person and just looks inside and looks at your engine bay and walks around and they're like, "Fuck, dude, this is the dopest car ever," that is always going to hit different. That's human nature. So the idea of people gathering together in any kind of circumstance, whether official, unofficial, outdoor, indoor, hot, cold, I think not only will it always happen, but it'll grow, especially if you start to try to do numbers. If the disparity prevents people from building,
Then
they
they're
can
gonna
still afford to go to an event and
yeah.
participate.
You still when we were kids we would still buy the Ferrari or Lamborghini or Porsche poster for our room.
Well, I bought import posters. I didn't give a
No,
fuck
but
about no Lamborghini.
I'm using this in that kind of a context, but
Yeah.
like even before that, when you're like a little kid, like your parents are putting these like things on
Yeah,
the wall.
yeah.
They don't even have them themselves, but they like you're appreciating it that way. So yeah, nothing beats in real life.
Nothing, right?
For sure.
And then thing, and
then
then
you're gonna, and if you can't get it, then you're gonna go see them.
you'll go see them. And just like it doesn't matter how much money, none of us are going to Pelican Concours and being like, "I'm totally gonna get into these classic Bentleys.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm gonna start collecting Astons, like pre-war cars." Like you just can't do that.
But you can go appreciate.
You can
it.
go appreciate them.
And
But
you can follow them on Instagram.
okay, but the part that's cool is as people want to gather and appreciate and have these events, meets, there's also going to be the ones who get the fire lit.
Yeah.
And they're going to make a way, right?
Like at all costs.
At
they're
all
going
costs.
to
There are going to be
do
people
it.
who make a way to get in. And, like I did an event recently where I was on stage. I do this at a lot of places just to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at the crowd and I said, all right, who here is under the age of 20? And this was actually Tuner Evolution Orlando. I'm using that specific event as an example. Said, who here is under the age of 20? And you had probably 60%.
Oh wow.
50 to 60%, if I remember. It was like scattered, but it looked to be a good half or a little bit above half.
Wow.
How many people here are under 20? Let's just say easy for the ease of conversation, 50%. Said how many people here are 20 to 40, I think I said. And there was like, 10, 20%. And then how many people here are over 40? And there was like 5 people, right? And because the reason I know the people who are doing the math are like, wait a minute, that doesn't equal 100%. Because there are people who won't raise their hand.
Yeah,
Right.
of
So I'm
course.
just going by what I saw. And I'm like, you guys, I was like, all right, under 20. Said, how old are you? 16. And then I knew a couple guys over there. How old are you? And he's like, dude, I'm 42. And I said, that's not to be embarrassed about. I'm like, look at where we are. We are in a place where a 16-year-old who has a car in the building, right?
Yeah.
And a 42-year-old who has a car in the building.
Yeah.
You can either be like, oh, boomer, oh, millennial, X, Y, Z, gen, whatever the fuck these titles are, or you guys can go appreciate each other's car. You can go talk to each other, right? And I think that that's crazy because the way the internet moves, a 16 and a 22-year-old have entirely different tastes.
Mm-hmm.
A 22-year-old and a 26-year-old. So it isn't generational like age. It's like 16 and 42 is like 10 generations apart by the way the internet moves and styles and music and culture and style of dress and automotive. It's crazy the amount of stuff different that a 42-year-old has seen and a 16-year-old, right? So even from a 16 to 26-year-old, how about 36 and then damn near 46, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. And I think that that's the coolest thing ever because you have this opportunity for people to, even if they don't talk to each other, which you guys have to talk to each other, okay? But even if you don't, just seeing the evolution of the tuner evolution.
This guy.
Shout out to Jay. Shout out to everybody. I actually, that pun, play on words kind of hit me at an event recently, and I said it, and I think only like 10% of the crowd got it. And I was like, hey, 10% of you thought that was witty. So, anyways, I think you guys, the love of cars, hot rod, low ride, Euro, DTM, race, show, JDM, VIP. There's so many different worlds, and in some places they only want to kick it with each other, right? And that's starting to become an archaic thing. Like racers used to be like these fucking show cars,
Right.
but now they're building their race cars like show cars, and I think in a way that kind of helps to blur it, because they might be like, well, this car is a race, but fuck, dude, that setup is sick, right? That
Yeah.
setup's clean. And then another person might go and be like, yo, this car just ran an 8, this car just ran a 9, or this car just broke the clockwise, front wheel drive record
Right.
at Button Willow, and this shit is gorgeously clean, and that's gonna inspire the dude to maybe be like, if he can do it, I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
it
past
seems
my
like
fear.
it does kind of go both ways.
It can.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're a douchebag, and then it doesn't matter what inspiration is around you, you'll just think you're the guy, right?
Right.
There's always that guy who just thinks they got it all figured out, whether car wise, money wise, whatever. But I think that it's kind of cool to see the potential there within the community and the culture, because now you have a guy who's like, did this car, this car is fast as fuck, whether drag or time attack, and it is super clean. And I think that might help them be like, yeah, I gotta try this. Like, whether they take a class or go to an open track day. Like, shout out to my people, Young T and Mel from AutoTune, the starting grid, which is designed specifically for beginners, for you to go and learn how to self-tech and just try. It doesn't matter if you are babying it, but to get out there instead of
Yeah.
feeling like, in your more like global time attack series where you're up against like very experienced people. So people like that who made an event for the people starting out, the starting grid, I think that that's great, right? And so that can influence it. And I'm sure, I mean, where do you think the racers got inspiration to do crazy engine bass? They must have seen it online,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And it influences each other in a good way. It'll influence you in a good way if you have a good attitude, and it'll influence you in a bad way if you have a bad attitude.
Pretty much.
Honestly,
Yeah, that's what it breaks
not
down
to be overly philosophical, but that's kind of how life is in general, So for me, being very intertwined in that side with people, traveling all over,
Yeah.
and seeing builds, talking to people, I'm actually optimistic about that. I am, just from an adult perspective. The monetary economic realities of things right now are kind of freaky, but in the end, people will find a way. The automotive culture has been around since the first automobile, and it's never gonna go anywhere. Whether we're all pushing a button and the car starts and no one could hear anything because it's electric, or it's boom, combustion, exhaust, up pipe, down pipe, turbo, NA. It's not going anywhere. People will find a way, unless the RPM Act doesn't pass and the EPA destroys everything for everyone. And then it doesn't matter if it's electric or combustion, we're all going to eventually be fucked. And that is not even remotely an exaggeration. That is the truth. And if you are like, wait, what? The RPM Act, we have an episode, Ryan and I have a literal episode dedicated to talking about it, not just specifically, but practically, how it's going to affect us.
We printed out our paperwork and we highlighted things and we
Quoted
cycled
references,
through everything.
shouted out the journalists who did the thing. And honestly, guys, if you don't know, please look it up. Whether you watch our episode about it or you read about it in other places, what matters the most is you educating yourself on it, because that will be the beginning of the end of our industry and the community. Because if it's illegal for you to have the car, any car, then having a gathering would be way more dangerous than it is now. Because if everything in the parking lot's illegal, a cop would just be like, well, I don't even have to pick one. None of these cars are supposed to be on the road. Just think about it. Just think about that. So, anyways, if you don't know, please look it up. But, this is part one. Part two, given the style and the volume of questions that are kind of within this realm, we'll hit you guys with a part two, and kind of get into more detail, maybe with some specifics as based off of your comments, your DMs, etc. Because I feel like in many ways we just scratched the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Industry,
There's a lot more to
community,
it.
and culture, the future. What do you guys think? Do you agree with anything we said? Do you disagree with it? Let us know in the comments. Don't hesitate. There's a few of you hardcore regulars who, hit us with these like paragraph long. We love it. It shows that you're thinking, and we look forward to reading the comments as always. Please take the time to subscribe, like the video, smash the bell, and help us continue to grow and reach the community in a positive, intelligent, mature fashion, which is what we do here at Car Talk.
I like it.
So Ryan,
It's time.
it's time, my friends. We appreciate you. We'll see you on the next episode of Car Talk.